Story 1. I was 6 years old the day my father stopped talking. Same age as Dennis Martin when he disappeared. I didn't understand it then, of course. Just thought my dad was tired or mad. Or maybe both. But something in him went quiet. Not just his voice, his eyes too. Like he was always looking past you into something far away. Something he never wanted to see again. It wasn't until I was grown, long-haul trucker myself, logging 50,000 miles a year through the Smokies, that I started to feel it. That weight. Like the mountains themselves remembered something, and whispered it through the fog. I never planned to go looking for the truth. But the road has a way of circling back. I remember the night it started. Rain on the windshield, CB hissing now and then. Empty stretch of 441 just outside Cades Cove. You don't get much company out there after dark, just the deer in the trees, and sometimes, not even that. I glanced at the passenger seat. My father's old map was there, folded in that way he used to, like a soldier, sharp corners, crisp creases. I found it the week he died, tucked inside a box marked "Do Not Open." Of course I opened it. There was a circle drawn in red ink, no name, no label, just a spot deep in the green, and a word written beneath it. Backtrack. That's when I remembered the only time he ever mentioned Dennis Martin. It was late. I was home on a layover. He was sitting on the porch, whiskey in one hand, photo in the other. The photo was black and white. 4 people, 2 kids, a father, and a boy in a striped shirt. He didn't look at me when he spoke, just stared at that picture and said, "We didn't lose him. We were told to stop looking." Then he went inside. Didn't say another word for 3 days. I never asked him about it again, until the day he couldn't speak at all. That's when I found the map. That's when I circled a date in my own logbook, June 14th, the day Dennis Martin vanished, the day I would drive into what he left behind. And I'm telling you now, what I found out there, it never left. Not the smell, not the quiet, not the voice that came through my radio asking for help. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back, just one more time, to the Smoky Mountains, 1969. And the boy the forest never gave back. Father's Day weekend, 1969. The kind of afternoon that makes you think nothing bad can happen. Blue skies, soft breeze through the treetops, families unpacking coolers and folding chairs. America at its most ordinary, most peaceful. The Martin family, William and Clyde, 2 brothers, their sons, and William's wife, had picked a quiet spot in the Smoky Mountains National Park, just above Spence Field. Close enough to other hikers to feel safe, far enough to feel alone. Dennis Martin was 6 years old. His father, William, said he was quiet, kind, a little shy, always trying to keep up with the bigger kids. That day, Dennis wore a red shirt, a little too big for him, and new sneakers that made him run funny. They said he wanted to surprise the adults, play a prank during their picnic. So he slipped away into the brush, grinning, a game of hide and seek. That's all it was. His cousins went the other way. They all planned to jump out at the same time, scare the grown-ups. Dennis never jumped out. They waited a minute, then 2. His father called his name, casually at first, then louder still. No reply. He wasn't far. Couldn't have been. The woods around them weren't that thick, not yet. Just shrubs, a small rise in the land. They all started walking, calling, laughing nervously. "He's just hiding," they said. But the birds had stopped singing. The air flat, still. Even the wind seemed to pull back. Within 10 minutes, William Martin was running, shouting his son's full name. Dennis, Dennis Martin, until his voice broke. Within 30, park rangers had been notified. Within 3 hours, the mountain was being combed. But from the moment he vanished, there was no sound, no rustle of leaves, no cry, no footprints in the soft dirt. It was as if the forest had inhaled and taken him with it. My father was one of the first volunteers to respond the next morning. Young ranger, fit, serious, not yet a man broken by what he'd seen. I found his field notes once, years later. He had written just 4 words for June 15th. He should be here. But Dennis Martin wasn't. Not behind the bush, not over the hill, not anywhere. By the end of that first day, there were more than a dozen men in the woods. Park rangers, local volunteers, hikers who dropped everything to help. By the second day, there were hundreds. Within a week, there were more than 1,000 people searching for Dennis Martin. Army Special Forces, the National Guard, rescue dogs, helicopters. It was one of the largest search operations in the history of the Smoky Mountains. They scoured miles of terrain. Steep ridgelines, rocky gullies, cold creeks that twisted through thick green like veins under skin. They set up base camps, ran grid patterns, shouted his name until their voices bled. Dennis Martin. Dennis, can you hear me? Dennis Martin, we're here for you. And still, nothing. The dogs picked up a scent, once, followed it for maybe 200 feet, then stopped, just stopped. They sat down and whined, wouldn't move forward, wouldn't turn back, as if whatever they smelled was gone, or too close. One of the Special Forces guys told my father something strange. He said, "The way that scent trail ends, it's like he vanished mid-step." And that wasn't the only odd thing. The rain came on day 3, out of nowhere. Heavy, fast. Some said it was natural. Others said it was timed, to wash something away. Prints, tracks, blood. Who knows? What we do know is this. Not one item belonging to Dennis Martin was ever officially recovered. Not his red shirt, not his shoes, not his small wristwatch with a cracked face. Not a single piece. Now, I don't know if you've ever stood in a forest like that. Not one made for camping, but the kind that's old and quiet and deep. But let me tell you something. 1,000 people can stand shoulder to shoulder and still miss what's hiding 10 feet away. The Smokies aren't kind to searchers. They shift, they swallow, they hold on to things. Sometimes, forever. My father was out there for 6 days. He barely slept, barely ate. I found a note he'd written to my mother. "Tell the boy I'll be home soon. I just need to know." But he came home without answers, without his voice, without the look in his eye I remembered. That was gone too. And for decades, I thought that was the end of it. A tragedy, a fluke. Until I learned someone had seen something, and no one listened. 3 days into the search, just as the rain was settling in and turning the trails to mud, a family came forward. They hadn't spoken right away. They weren't locals, just another family out camping in the next valley over, about 6 miles from where Dennis Martin had last been seen. The Key family. That was their name. Harold Key, his wife, and their children. They'd been walking along a trail near Rowan's Creek that afternoon when their youngest son pointed out something moving on the ridge. It wasn't a bear. It wasn't a hiker. It was a man. Harold described him as rough-looking, unkempt, wearing what might have been rags or torn-up clothing. He moved strangely, low to the ground at times, like he was trying to avoid being seen. But that wasn't what made them stop. He was carrying something over his shoulder, something small, limp, like it wasn't conscious. Harold said it looked like a sack of potatoes, but his son thought it was a body, a child-sized body, with one arm swinging free. The figure disappeared into the trees, quietly. No sound, no broken branches, just gone. The Keys hurried back down the trail. They didn't sleep that night. And the next morning, Harold told a ranger what they'd seen. But the timeline didn't match up exactly. The spot they saw the figure, 6 miles away. Could a man have moved that fast, that far, through that terrain? The ranger didn't think so. They filed it, but it went nowhere. No follow-up, no sketch, no broadcast. My father remembered the report. He asked about it at base camp. A supervisor told him, "Stick to your grid. Don't chase ghosts." Later that night, over the campfire, one of the older rangers whispered, "We know about people out here. Some folks live in these woods. Don't want to be found." My father didn't reply, but he wrote something in his journal that night, underlined twice. They saw him. That was all. Not they think, not maybe. They saw him. And from that moment on, my father stopped believing this was just a missing person case. He started believing something else, something worse. And if you've ever looked your own father in the eye and seen fear, you know exactly what that means. The first time I found the map, it was tucked inside a box marked "Do Not Open" in black marker. My father's handwriting. The box was in the attic, buried beneath old ranger uniforms and a steel flashlight that hadn't worked in 30 years. The map wasn't like the ones they gave tourists. It was bigger, wetter, the kind you used in real work, crisscrossed in faded pencil lines, tiny circles, arrows. But one mark stood out, drawn in red. A single ring around a patch of deep forest off the trail system. No name, no road, no trails leading in or out. Just one word beneath it. Backtrack. I didn't ask what it meant. By then, my father couldn't speak anymore. But 2 days before he passed, he grabbed my hand, tighter than I thought he still could, and rasped something into my palm like a secret. "You go. Don't talk. Just see." That's why I came back. Not because I wanted answers, but because I needed to see what took him from me. Because whatever happened out there in 1969 didn't just take Dennis Martin. It took part of my father and left him walking with a ghost for the rest of his life. So I circled the date, June 14th, loaded the rig, and drove. I didn't tell anyone where I was going, didn't call dispatch, just kept rolling toward the mountains. By the time I hit the turnoff, night was already crawling over the trees, rain starting to spit. The kind of rain that only falls in places where the sun hasn't been for days. Pulled into a rundown gas station, one of those spots that feels like it's been there too long, like the building grew out of the dirt. Guy behind the counter was older than the sign above the door. Worn cap, one eye cloudy, the other sharper than you'd expect. "You headed up 441?" he asked. "Yeah." "Alone?" "Yeah." He didn't say anything right away. Just looked at me, then at the road behind me. Then he leaned in and said, "Kid went missing up there last week. Left his truck running, lights on, door open, just gone." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. He kept talking. place you're headed. Folks say there's a part of them woods that don't show up right on maps. Not on paper ones. Not digital either. Like it moves. I asked him what he meant. He shook his head. Ain't my business. Just don't stop if you hear someone calling your name. Then he turned around and disappeared into the back. I filled up, paid cash, and pulled back onto the road. A few minutes later, I passed the turnoff my father had marked in red. There was no sign, no trailhead, just a break in the tree line, like a mouth half open. I didn't stop, but I slowed. Something in the woods moved, slow and smooth, just beyond the edge of the headlights. No shape, no eyes, just the feeling that something was watching and waiting. The CB crackled softly. No voice yet, just static. I kept driving, but I knew, whatever this place was, whatever he'd circled all those years ago, it hadn't forgotten, and it sure as hell hadn't forgiven. The road narrowed the farther I went, trees crowding the shoulders, leaning in like they were trying to whisper. No streetlights, no moon. Just the soft hum of the engine and the wet slap of tires on gravel. And then, the CB chirped. Quick, sharp, like someone had just flipped it on but didn't know what to say. I leaned toward it, waited. Nothing. Just the low hiss of static. I turned the volume up a little, listened harder. And then, a voice. Faint, fragile, like it came from underwater. Dad. I froze. Not the kind of frozen where your hands shake. No, the kind where your body forgets how to move at all. My foot hovered over the gas. The wheel drifted slightly, pulling toward the right. I corrected without thinking. The CB stayed quiet for a second. Then, "Are you there?" Same voice. Young. Maybe 6 or 7 years old. Barely louder than a breath. "Dad, I can't find you." It wasn't my son's voice. I don't have a son. But it was saying it to me. I reached for the mic. My fingers touched the plastic, cold, damp from the humidity in the cab. I didn't pick it up. I didn't press the button. I just listened. The voice came again, softer this time, and slower, like it was struggling to remember how to speak. "Dad, come back." And then it changed. Just a little. Not louder, not clearer, just wrong. As if whatever was speaking was only pretending to be a child. The pitch flattened, the cadence cracked, like someone pushing air through a throat that didn't belong to them. I turned the CB off. And for a moment, there was silence. No rain, no static, no wind. Just that heavy, living stillness that wraps around you when you know you are not alone. I didn't stop the truck, didn't pull over, didn't look at the tree line. I just kept driving, because every part of me knew, whatever that was, it knew my name, and it wasn't asking. I think my father wanted to tell me what really happened. I think he tried. But there are some memories that sit too deep in the bone, like rot in old wood. You don't dig them out. You live around them. The closest he ever came was one night, maybe a year before he got sick. We were sitting in the garage, just the two of us. No lights, no beer. Just the sound of cicadas outside and the creak of his old lawn chair every time he shifted. He said, "There were more prints than they told people." I didn't say anything. He went on, voice low, not whispering, just tired. One looked like it came from a child, small, barefoot, pressed deep into the mud like he was being dragged or like he stopped walking on his own. He paused, swallowed hard. But beside it, there was another, bigger, wider, wrong. I asked him what he meant. He shook his head. It wasn't a shoe, wasn't even a foot, really. Looked like something else. Long toes, deep heel, but off. Like it didn't belong to a person. He said the tracks went side by side, up into a ravine that wasn't on the search grid. They followed them halfway, then got called back by radio. A higher-up told them they were off course, told them to stick to the plan, told them nothing good comes from wandering where you're not asked to be. And they obeyed. But my father never forgot that trail, the shape of it, the smell. He said something was walking with him, not chasing, not dragging, just walking beside him, like they knew each other, or like Dennis Martin was too young to know he should be afraid. That was the only time I ever saw my father cry. Not sobbing, not loud, just 2 tears, down both cheeks, and a look in his eyes that said he wished he hadn't seen it at all. After that, he never spoke of the boy again. But I saw the change. He stopped going into the woods, sold his rifle, burned his ranger hat in the fire pit out back one October night. And when he was dying, he gave me the map. I think he wanted me to see what he saw. Or maybe he just didn't want to be the last one carrying it. The forest thinned as I climbed higher, trees giving way to mist, mist giving way to rock. My headlights cut through the fog in pale yellow beams, but beyond them, just black. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of the road, was the place my father had circled in red. I don't know what I expected to find. Bones? A shirt? A sign? But what I found was nothing. Just a pull-off wide enough for one truck. No signs, no guardrail, no reason to stop unless you were looking for something. So I stopped. Engine idling. Rain soft on the windshield like fingertips. I didn't get out. Just sat there, breathing, listening, and that's when I heard it again. The CB wasn't on. I'd shut it off, yanked the plug clean earlier. But something was whispering. Not through the speakers this time. Outside. It was faint, like wind at first, but the rhythm was too steady, too human. Dad. Drawn out, barely audible, like a memory speaking back. I reached for the door handle, froze. The whisper came again, closer. Are you coming? I didn't move, didn't breathe. My hands on the wheel, my eyes fixed on the trees. Nothing moved. And then, one more time, but not from the woods, from the back of the cab, right behind me. Please? It was the voice of a child. But it wasn't Dennis Martin. It wasn't any child. It was the sound of something using a voice like a mask. Something that had been waiting, listening, learning. And it had learned enough. It didn't turn around, didn't speak, didn't give it anything. Because my father's voice was still somewhere in my head, quiet and steady. If you hear him, don't speak. So I put the truck in gear, slowly, rolled forward, headlights washing over the trees. And as I pulled away, just as the wheels gripped solid pavement again, I caught something in the side mirror, a figure, small, barefoot, standing in the road behind me and smiling. I didn't look again, didn't blink, didn't breathe too deep. I kept my eyes forward, hands steady on the wheel, and I drove. Not fast, no panic, no screeching tires, no dramatic escape, just forward. Like a man who knows that stopping is worse than whatever waits ahead. The road curved and dropped, the mist thickening behind me like a curtain closing on a stage I was never supposed to see. The CB stayed silent. No voices, no static, no goodbye. I drove for miles before the forest let up, before the trees loosened their grip on the road and the mountains faded back into shadow. The rain softened. The air got warmer. It wasn't until I hit a familiar stretch, wide and open, with the faint orange glow of distant gas stations ahead, that I finally let out the breath I didn't realize I'd been holding since the moment I stopped. That's when I said it out loud. To no one. Dennis Martin is never coming back. Not because we didn't look hard enough. Not because he got lost. But because something in those woods took him, or welcomed him, or maybe, just maybe, he followed it willingly. Maybe whatever called to me once called to him too. My father knew. He didn't have proof, but he had something better. Instinct. The kind that sits in your gut and grows colder every year you ignore it. That's why he stopped talking. Because some truths don't want to be told. They just want to be remembered and passed on. So now I've told you. And if you're ever driving through the Smoky Mountains at night, and your radio crackles, or a soft voice whispers your name from somewhere it shouldn't, don't answer. Don't stop, just keep driving. The highway opened wide in front of me, clean lines, distant signs, the hum of other lives blinking by in the dark, civilization, comfort, the illusion of safety. I kept both hands on the wheel, didn't look in the mirrors, didn't reach for the CB. The world felt normal again, the way it does after something terrible, like nothing ever happened, even though you know it did. I passed a rest stop, lights buzzing, truckers parked in rows, engines ticking as they cooled. I thought about pulling over, sitting, calling someone, saying something. But what could I say? How do you explain the kind of silence that follows you? So I kept going. The radio was off. The phone was off. Only the road and the low hum of tires against wet asphalt. And then, so soft I could have imagined it, from somewhere behind the seat. Dad. I didn't turn around, didn't flinch, just kept my hands at 10 and 2, and drove. Story 2. I heard it again last night. Channel 6, shortwave. A faint crackle then, static, then a voice, my name. Said soft, like someone testing if I was still listening. Michael. The thing is, my brother's been dead for 10 years. So yeah, I heard it. And I wish I could tell you I turned the dial, laughed it off, pulled into a diner, and forgot the whole thing over coffee and bad eggs. But I didn't. Because that voice, it sounded exactly like him. Same slow drawl. Same way he used to say my name when I was zoning out behind the wheel, like I'd drifted too far and he was reeling me back. And God help me, I answered. Just one word. What? I shouldn't have. I know that now. But I did. And the second I spoke, the static stopped. Cut clean. Silence, so deep it felt like my lungs didn't work right. Then the voice came back. Louder this time. Michael, you found me. And I swear to you, I felt something shift. Like the air inside the cab got heavier, like I wasn't alone anymore. I slammed the radio off. Didn't matter. That night, I drove straight through, all windows cracked, trying to breathe. Trying not to think about how cold it had gotten, how the mirrors kept fogging up from the inside. But you don't care about that, do you? You want to know what happened? Why I'm talking like this? Why I'm parked on the edge of nowhere, speaking into a recorder like someone's still out there? Someone who might believe me before it's too late. So fine. Here it is. 10 years after we buried my brother, I got a letter. No return address, just a photo inside, a picture of me and him. Back before the war, back when we were just two dumb kids who thought the mountains were big and the world was small. On the back, one line. Still here. Brown Mountain. I don't know who sent it. The postmark was smudged. The paper smelled old, like mildew and campfire smoke. But I couldn't stop looking at that photo. Couldn't stop hearing his voice, the one from the radio, the one that said my name like no one else ever has. So yeah, I went. I packed light. Told dispatch I needed a few days, gave no details, and I drove. Straight into the part of North Carolina people don't talk about unless they have to. Past where the maps stop making sense. Past the little towns with 2 gas pumps and a single bar full of men who stare too long and talk too little. Somewhere between Linville and the Ridge. I heard him again. No radio this time. No static. Just a whisper from the passenger seat. "Michael, you came." I didn't stop. I didn't speak. I just kept driving, knuckles white on the wheel, mouth dry as sand. Because right then, I remembered what he'd looked like in the casket. And that voice hadn't aged a day. The letter came on a Wednesday. No name, no return address. Just a plain envelope, off-white, torn at the corner like it had been handled too many times. I almost tossed it. Thought it was junk, or some lost bill from a place I didn't remember owing. But when I touched it, I froze. My name. It was written on the front in a hand I hadn't seen in over a decade. Slanted, deliberate, just a little too neat. Like he used to write when he was trying to make Mom proud. David. I stared at it for maybe 5 minutes. Just stared. My hand didn't want to open it. My heart already knew what it was. Not because it made sense, but because something in me had already started shaking. I opened it anyway. Inside was a photo. Faded, creased in the middle. Me and David, 17, maybe 18, standing in front of Dad's old Chevy, grinning like idiots. That was the summer before we both enlisted. The last summer, we were normal. On the back of the photo, just 5 words. Still here. Brown Mountain. David. I sat on the floor for hours with that thing in my hand. The air got heavy. The room went silent, like the whole house had sucked in its breath. I told myself it was a prank, a bad joke. Someone found the photo, wrote that, sent it just to mess with me. But that handwriting? That was David's. I'd seen it in birthday cards, in field notebooks, in the letter he sent me the week before he died. And the smell. The paper smelled like the woods, like ash and pine sap and earth after rain. The part of me that knows better. It kept screaming, "Don't go. Let the dead stay dead." But something else, something older, deeper, whispered, "What if you were wrong? What if he wasn't dead?" And maybe that's the part I couldn't live with. See, the last time I saw David, it was smoke and fire and screaming. I was dragging someone else out, a kid who'd lost half his leg. And I saw David just for a second, through the blast. He was waving me off, mouthing something I couldn't hear, telling me to run. And I did. I left him there. I told myself he was already gone, that I had no choice, that I couldn't save them both. but I still hear him sometimes. In sleep, in silence, when the engine's humming and the highway stretches empty for miles. Why didn't you come back? So when I saw those words, still here, Brown Mountain, I didn't ask questions. I didn't tell anyone. I loaded the truck, grabbed my old shortwave, and I drove north, into the ridges, into the place people only whisper about. Because if there was even a 1% chance, if there was any shot that he was alive, or something of him still was, I had to go. I owed him that. I'd been driving most of the day by the time I saw the gas station. Sun was dropping, that slow Appalachian kind of dusk, where everything turns gold and long shadows creep out from the trees. The road twisted tighter the deeper I went, asphalt cracking under the weight of time and weather. Pines lined both sides, dense and close, like they were watching. And then, there it was, one lone building off the curve, half swallowed by vines and tall grass. No name, just a flickering neon open sign buzzing weakly in the window, like it hadn't been turned off in 20 years. I pulled in. The gravel crunched under my tires like bones. Place looked abandoned until I stepped inside. Bell over the door didn't ring, just let out this dry metal click, like it had forgotten how to make a proper sound. Inside, the air was thick. Still, like nothing had moved in a long time. Behind the counter stood an old man. Real old, skin like tree bark, cataract eyes, dressed in a gas station uniform that might have been older than I was. He didn't look up when I entered, just stood there, staring at a dusty radio that was playing some old blues tune, real low. I cleared my throat. He still didn't look. "Pump still work?" I asked. Long pause. Then his mouth moved, like it had to remember how to form words. "You headed toward the ridge?" I didn't answer right away. Something in the way he said it, like he already knew, like he'd seen me before. "Brown Mountain," I said. His cloudy eyes blinked slow. He looked right at me now, through me. "They know you're coming," he said. "You ain't the first." Something inside me twisted. Who knows? He didn't respond. Just reached below the counter, pulled out a pack of matches, and slid them across. "Keep a flame near you," he said. "They don't like real fire." I opened my mouth to ask more, but the radio behind him crackled. Shifted stations, landed on a hiss of static. Then I heard it again. "Michael." Soft, right in my left ear. I turned fast. No one behind me, just rows of dusty shelves and a dead ceiling fan. When I looked back at the man, he was gone. No door, no sound, just gone. I stood there for a while. The radio kept hissing. So I left the matches, walked out, and pumped my gas in silence, eyes scanning the tree line the whole time. And just as I was climbing back into the truck, something flickered at the edge of the woods. A light. Small, golden, moving like it was floating just above the ground. It blinked once, twice, then held steady, like it was watching, like it was waiting. And for a second, just a second, I swear it blinked in sync with the little red light on my dashboard, like it was breathing with me. The road narrowed after the gas station, shoulders gone, trees pressed tighter, headlights cutting tunnels through thick fog. My GPS stopped updating a few miles back. Just froze on a blank screen and stayed there, like even the satellites didn't want to follow me any further. I should have turned around, should have called someone, not that I could. Signal had vanished half an hour ago. But something kept me going. Not stubbornness, not curiosity exactly. It was more like gravity. like something out there already had its hand around my spine, pulling slow. I found a place to stop just past mile marker 84. A patch of gravel wide enough for the truck, maybe once used for maintenance vehicles. Woods on all sides. Dead quiet. I killed the engine. Sat there a moment, windows fogging up in the silence. Then I saw it again. That light. Out past the tree line. Same golden glow. Low to the ground, moving too smooth to be a flashlight. It hovered, dipped slightly, then rose like it had noticed me watching. I blinked. Gone. No sound. No rustling. Just gone. I stepped out anyway. Cold hit me, sharp, wet. Smelled like wet bark and metal. I grabbed a flashlight from the glove box, clicked it on, but didn't use it right away. I just stood there, listening. Then I caught my reflection. Driver's side mirror. It was me, mostly. Jacket, hat, same tired face. But the eyes were wrong, off by half a second. Like the image had to catch up to what I was doing. I lifted my hand. The reflection followed, but just a beat too slow. I leaned in, squinted, and the reflection smiled. I didn't. My breath caught. I backed away, fast, nearly slipped on gravel. Light spilled from the cabin. My flashlight had rolled onto the floor and clicked on, its beam now cutting a line through the mist. That's when I heard it again. Michael. Not from the mirror. Not from the woods. From inside the cab. I turned, quick, and there was no one there. Just the empty seat. But the radio, the shortwave, was on. I'd turned it off. I know I did. But it was on. Glowing faint blue, dial set to channel 6. I leaned in. Static. Then a breath. Wet, close. Like someone speaking right against the mic. "You're almost here," the voice said. My heart slammed against my ribs. Then silence. I ripped the battery from the unit. Threw it on the seat, hands shaking. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't even try. Just locked the doors, turned on the dome light, and stared at that mirror until the fog lifted. And the whole time, I could feel something just outside the glass. Not watching. Mimicking. Like it was learning how to be me. Sometime around dawn, I must have drifted off, maybe an hour, no more. I woke up with a jolt, breath stuck in my throat, sweat cold on my neck. The light was pale outside, that colorless kind of morning where nothing feels quite real yet. But I wasn't alone. I felt it before I saw anything, this pressure in the air, like the cab was full of something I couldn't see. My hands were already shaking when I reached for the door. I stepped out. The woods were quiet, too quiet. And then I saw him, standing at the edge of the trees. David, wearing the same jacket he died in, torn at the sleeve, burned at the shoulder. His boots covered in red clay, face pale, eyes wide, like he hadn't slept since the day he went missing. But he smiled when he saw me. "Michael," he said, like it was just another morning, like nothing had happened. I couldn't move. My knees went weak. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. He stepped closer. "You came," he said. "I didn't think you would." I whispered, "David." He nodded. "You can't stay long," he said. "They're watching. But I wanted to see you. One more time." I was crying before I knew it. Something broke in me, 10 years of guilt, of silence, of pretending I hadn't left him there. It came up all at once. "I'm sorry," I said. "I should have gone back. I should have." He held up a hand. You did what you had to. I get it. I do. He looked over his shoulder, into the trees, and something moved behind him. Slow, smooth shapes. Not people, not animals. Shadows that didn't belong. I'm tired, Michael, David said. Tired of running. Tired of hiding. I'm not supposed to be here. But they let me speak, for a little while. I couldn't take my eyes off him. What do you mean? Let you? He smiled again. This time it didn't reach his eyes. They want you now. I flinched. What? They want to trade. The woods shifted. The air pulsed, thick with something electric. The lights began to gather behind him, 4, maybe 5 of them, hovering like fireflies, but wrong, deliberate. They can bring me back, David said. Let me go home. Let me live again. But they need someone in return. He stepped closer, just inches from me now. I could smell the forest on him. Smoke and dirt and something else. Something metallic. It has to be someone like me, he said. Someone who knows the truth. Someone who left. I took a step back. David, this isn't you. You wouldn't ask me to. His face twitched. I didn't ask. I froze. The lights brightened. They swirled behind him, fast now like a storm circling. I didn't ask, he repeated, voice lower. I saw it then, in his eyes. Something behind them, a flicker, like there were others inside him. I'm tired, Michael. I want to go home. He reached out. Let me go. His hand touched mine, and I felt everything. Cold and memory and panic and static. Images flashed through my skull, war, fire, screams. That moment I turned away. I yanked my hand back. No. David's eyes narrowed. The lights behind him froze. No, he said. My voice cracked. You're not him. And that smile, the one thing I'd held onto for years, it peeled back into something else. Something wrong. He tilted his head too far to the side. You almost believed it, he whispered. Then he turned and vanished. The lights collapsed into the trees, one by one, and I was alone again, breathing like I'd run a marathon, heart hammering, hands trembling. But the worst part? My hand still felt warm, like he was still holding on. I didn't drive, not right away. I just stood there, staring at the spot where David, no, whatever that was, had vanished. The air felt wrong, like it hadn't settled yet, like it was still vibrating from what just happened. My breath fogged in front of me, but the rest of the world felt breathless. I finally climbed back into the truck, locked the doors, and just sat with the engine off. Hands on the wheel, eyes forward. And then the lights came back. Not one, not a few, all of them. Dozens, hundreds, moving through the trees like a slow, silent parade, hovering, watching, floating just above the ground in perfect rhythm, like they were marching or circling. They didn't come close, not yet. They just drifted between the trunks, weaving in and out like they were mapping me, surrounding the space without touching it, not chasing, just knowing. I turned on the headlights. They didn't flinch. I hit the horn. Nothing. But then, something stepped into view. At first I thought it was a man, tall, still, dressed like someone from nowhere. But as it moved, I saw the wrongness. The arms hung too long. The head tilted like it had never learned balance. Its skin, or what looked like skin, reflected the light, but didn't absorb it. It was empty, hollow. It moved like memory, slow, unfinished, like it didn't quite know how to be human yet. Then another stepped out behind it, and another. Each one different, each one not quite right. They copied gestures, turning their heads, raising a hand, blinking just a second late, like they were practicing. And one of them, God help me, one of them looked exactly like me. Same jacket, same boots, same scar over the left brow from when I hit the corner of Dad's workbench when I was 12. But its face was stuck, like it had learned one expression and didn't know how to switch. A smile, wide, plastic, shaking at the edges. It raised its hand and waved, slowly, like it had seen me do it once and decided that's how people say hello. I couldn't move. Behind them, the woods pulsed with more lights, each one casting shadows in the shape of people who no longer existed. Children, soldiers, lovers, all watching me. Then came the sound. Not from the trees, not from the sky, but from inside the cab. The shortwave, still off, still missing its battery. But I heard it. My voice, playing back, not echoing, predicting, repeating words I hadn't said yet. "I'm not me," it said in my voice. "Not anymore." Then it went silent, and something inside the mirror moved. Not a reflection, but a delay. Like the version of me in the glass was slowly deciding whether it wanted to follow. The light shifted. The road ahead, once so clear, was now a loop. One long, endless bend that led back into itself. I turned the key. Nothing. Tried again. Dead. The lights pulsed once, together, like a heartbeat. They'd stopped copying. They'd started waiting. I don't remember falling asleep. 1 second I was staring into the woods, mouth dry, fingers locked around the steering wheel like a lifeline. And the next, I was waking up to birdsong. Just like that. Bright, peaceful. Like a morning out of someone else's life. Sunlight slanted through the trees. No fog, no lights. Just the soft rustle of wind and the familiar creak of the old truck frame settling in the cold. For a minute, I thought maybe I'd imagined it all. Maybe I'd cracked under the weight. The guilt, the years of holding it in. Maybe I'd finally snapped. I sat up, rubbed my face, checked the radio, dead, like it should be. Still missing the battery, the shortwave screen dark and blank. I laughed, actually laughed, like a man who just realized he'd made a fool of himself chasing ghosts in the woods. I turned the key, engine fired up like nothing had ever gone wrong. I pulled out, back onto the road, gravel popping under the tires. A few miles later, I saw the sign. Welcome to Linville. Same diner, same gas station. Only the paint was fresh. Too fresh. Like someone had just built it yesterday to look like the one from before. I stopped for gas, even though I didn't need it. Just wanted to feel normal again. I walked inside. Bell chimed this time, nice and crisp. The guy behind the counter looked up. Young, polite, no cataracts. But he smiled a little too quickly, like he was trying it out. "You've been here before, haven't you?" he asked. I froze. "A couple days ago," he said. "You were asking about the mountain." I didn't answer, just stared. He blinked, but the blink was late, like the others. My stomach turned cold. I paid cash and left without pumping a drop. Back on the road, I kept catching glimpses of myself in the rear view. Nothing weird, not at first. But then, my mouth moved, only I hadn't said anything. It formed a word I couldn't hear, then did it again, and again. I turned the mirror upward, out of view. Didn't look back, didn't want to. But the voice came anyway. Not from the radio, not from the woods, from inside me, from under me. Whispered low, with my voice. You brought it back. It didn't feel like a memory. It felt like a passenger, like something had gotten in when I wasn't looking. When I opened the door that wasn't really a door. When I said David, and meant it. I pulled over outside of Boone, sat there a long time. No music, no motion, just the ticking of the engine cooling in the silence. And that whisper, still in my head, still smiling in the mirror I refused to look at, still saying things I hadn't thought yet. They don't follow. They ride. If you're hearing this, it means I didn't get out. Or maybe I did. But I didn't come back alone. It's hard to say anymore. Hard to tell what's real and what's just them, playing dress up with my thoughts. They don't come at you screaming. They don't claw or chase. They learn you, piece by piece, like picking a lock from the inside. First, they sound like someone you miss. Then, they say something only that person would know. Then, they wait. Wait for you to say it back. Wait for you to believe. Wait for you to answer. That's the moment it changes. That's when the hook goes in. And once it does, they don't have to drag you anywhere. You'll walk on your own. You'll follow the voice, follow the light, follow whatever they hold in front of you like a mirror held just out of reach. And they'll keep talking. They'll whisper the things you never got to say. The forgiveness you always wanted. The apology you never gave. They know what you want, and they give it to you. But nothing they give is real. Not the face, not the voice, not the second chance. It's all a rehearsal. And when they've learned enough, when they've become enough, they step in, not with a scream, not with violence. They just replace. One day you look in the mirror, and it's smiling before you do. You hear your own voice before you speak. You reach for the radio, and it's already tuned to what you were thinking. You tell yourself it's stress, fatigue, trauma, and that's when they know they've won. Because the moment you doubt yourself, the moment you start wondering if it's really you behind your own eyes, that's when they've settled in. Quiet, deep, permanent. So if you're still out there, if you're still whole, I'm begging you, don't follow the lights. Don't trust the voice. And above all, don't answer. Even if it sounds like your mother, even if it sounds like your child, even if it says your name with all the weight of someone you loved and lost. Because sometimes, it's not them talking, it's the lights. Story 3. I still hear her voice, not screaming, whispering. She was in that tent, watching us. We passed her, more than once. Bright green tent, middle of an open space. We passed her, but we never saw her. When we found her body, 2 years later, her last words were written in a notebook with shaky, fading ink. They were here. They didn't see me. You know, this story is real. Her name was Geraldine Largay, and she disappeared in July of 2013 while hiking the Appalachian Trail. But I'm not here to give you a report, or dates, or maps, or theories. I'm here to tell you what it felt like, what it did to us, to know we were there. So close. So damn close. And still, we missed her. And maybe that's because we weren't supposed to find her. Maybe Geraldine Largay had already crossed to the other side, and we were just walking in circles, chasing something the forest had already taken. Or worse, something that had never really wanted to be seen. Geraldine Largay was 66 years old. She wasn't a survivalist. She wasn't chasing some record. She was soft-spoken, kind, cheerful, the kind of woman who still wrote handwritten letters to her friends. She'd been dreaming of this hike for years. Not the whole trail, just a stretch of the Appalachian, from West Virginia to Maine. She'd trained, she'd prepared. She was cautious, but she was determined. Her husband was nearby, not on the trail, but leapfrogging ahead, meeting her at road crossings. They had it all planned out. Every evening she'd check in. Short texts, maybe a call, a joke, a weather update. Made it to Spalding Mountain, feeling good. Heading out again tomorrow. Rain's coming, but I'm ready. The last message Geraldine Largay ever sent was on July 22nd, 2013. That morning, she left the Poplar Ridge lean-to around 7 a.m. She was going to meet her husband, George Largay, at a parking area about 20 miles away. She never showed up. She never sent another message. But here's the thing. There was no panic at first. She was experienced enough. Maybe she lost service. Maybe she got delayed. Maybe she'd appear around the next bend, tired, smiling, wet, but safe. She didn't. And the longer she stayed missing, the more the forest started to feel like it had swallowed her whole. We say it all the time. First 72 hours are everything. That's the window. After that, odds drop. Fast. So when Geraldine Largay didn't show up to meet George Largay that evening, and she wasn't at the next pickup either, things moved quickly. Calls, rangers, volunteers, helicopters, K-9 units. We mobilized fast. By the morning of July 24th, we had boots on the ground, dozens of us, combing through the dense, damp woods of western Maine. Let me tell you something about that part of the trail. It's beautiful, but it doesn't like to be looked at. Canopy so thick it swallows daylight. You can go from sunshine to shadow in 2 steps. Fog creeps low to the ground in the morning. The moss is slick, the streams are fast, and the map is never quite right. We had GPS, radios, trail markers, but it didn't matter. Because every single time we ran our grid, it felt like something shifted behind us. I remember soaking through my boots by noon, socks squishing, ankles numb. By day 2, some of us were coughing from the wet air. Scratches from brush stung with every move. You start feeling the mud like it's inside your skin, like it's part of you now. But we kept moving. She was out there. We knew she was. She had to be. People don't just vanish off a well-walked trail, except sometimes they do. There was a spot. We didn't talk about it at first, not like it was something special. Just a square in the grid, a patch of woods like any other. But we kept ending up there. Every day the GPS would ping us back to it, like it hadn't been cleared, like it was still fresh. First time we chalked it up to human error, missed something, came up short. Second time we started to wonder about satellite drift, weather interference. Third time, it felt different. The canopy in that area was heavier, not darker exactly, but quieter. Still, no wind, no birds. You'd be walking and realize you couldn't hear your own footsteps. And at night, I remember one night, close to sundown, I heard something. Not a branch breaking, not a rustle, a footstep. One single footstep, deliberate, heavy, and then nothing. You stand still after that, real still, because your brain says, could be an animal, but your spine says, that was something watching you. A guy on our team, Don, he stopped in the middle of the path, looked at the trees and just said, this place doesn't want her found. Some of us laughed, but it was nervous, hollow, because deep down, we were starting to believe it too. You know that feeling when you're not alone, even though nothing's there? That's what that patch felt like. And we were there, again and again, until we stopped joking, until we started marking it on the map with something no one says out loud. The cold spot. It took me a long time to admit this part. Even now, saying it out loud, it makes my throat close up, because it's not theory, it's not hindsight, it's not some metaphor, it's a fact. I walked right past her, the exact location where we eventually found Geraldine Largay's tent. We had been within 100 yards of it. Open ground, sparse trees, bright green fabric, and we missed it. I remember that day. I remember the light, flat and gray. No birds, just the sound of my own breathing and the soft squelch of my boots in wet dirt. I remember feeling cold. Not from the weather, this was deeper, like something was just over my shoulder, like the woods were holding their breath. I stopped, looked around, and I kept walking. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was tired, that if there was anything nearby, we'd already seen it. I told myself a lot of things. But the truth, the awful, gut-wrenching truth, is that she was right there. She was alive. While I was standing in those woods, pretending I didn't feel what I felt, Geraldine Largay was still alive. Maybe too weak to scream. Maybe too afraid to move. Maybe hoping, praying that someone would stop, would see. But I didn't. I turned my back on the place she died, and I will never stop hearing the silence that followed. They found her in October of 2015, over 2 years after she disappeared. It wasn't hunters. It wasn't hikers. It was a contractor doing environmental work, completely off trail on private land, just 2 miles from where she was last seen. They found the tent, still upright, weathered, but intact. And inside was her sleeping bag, her boots, her backpack, neatly packed, and a journal. It was water damaged. Some pages were too faded to read, but others were still sharp, still legible. She'd been writing, day after day, trying to keep track, trying to hold on. Some entries were short. Still here. Waiting. Heard helicopters. No one came. Others were longer and harder to read. I hear them. I scream. I wave my jacket. They pass. My hands are shaking. Ran out of food. I try not to think about it. The nights are the worst. Something brushes the tent. I think it's an animal. I hope it's an animal. And then there was this. I'm not scared of dying. I'm scared of being forgotten. I don't blame them. I think they tried. I don't think I'm supposed to leave. And the last entry, dated weeks after she vanished. They were here. They didn't see me. She had matches. She had a whistle. She had supplies. She did everything she could. And we were there. Right there. The only thing separating her from rescue was a line we didn't cross. Because something in us said, there's nothing there. But she was there. And she wrote while we walked past. A few days after they found the body, I was sitting with another guy from the team, Marcus. Older guy. Quiet, thoughtful. He'd been in search and rescue longer than most of us. We were out behind the station, drinking cheap coffee from paper cups, not saying much. Then Marcus says, real soft, "What if she made it out?" I looked at him, thought he was joking, but he didn't blink. "I mean it," he said. "What if she got to a road, got picked up by someone? Something bad happened after that, and the place they found her was a setup, a drop." I wanted to snap at him, tell him not to start with that. But I didn't, because part of me had already wondered the same thing. She had gear, she had food, she was smart. What if she had made it down? What if someone stopped for her, smiled, opened a door? But then I thought about the tent, the way it sat there, like it had been waiting, the way the trees bent over it, like shelter, or like a trap. And those journal pages, they weren't faked. They were raw, shaky, real. No one forged that. No one could fake being that scared, that patient, that human. So I shook my head and said, "No, that tent, that wasn't a setup. It was a tomb." He didn't argue, just nodded once, took another sip, and we sat there, listening to the wind in the pines. No one spoke again, because what else was left to say? I went back. I didn't plan to. I told myself I wouldn't. But some things stay in you. They dig in like a splinter under the skin. You can't see it, but it itches. It burns. 2 years after we found her, I drove back up to that part of Maine. Just me. No gear, no radios. I didn't even tell my wife. I parked near the same trailhead, the same spot Geraldine Largay was heading for, but never reached. And I walked. It looked the same. Trees growing too close together, air thick with moss and water. That heavy quiet, like the whole forest is listening. I didn't have a map, didn't need one, because my feet, they knew where to go. They brought me back to that spot, the cold spot, the patch we kept circling, the place that didn't want to be found. And as I stood there, after all those years, my GPS blinked and went blank. No signal, just a flat screen, empty. I turned on my flashlight, and the beam cut through the trees like a blade. And then, for just a second, I saw something. On the side of a tree, high up, way above eye level, was a handprint. Faint, gray, almost like ash pressed into bark. It was too high to reach, and too old to be mine. I froze. The light flickered, and behind me, just once, I heard my name. Not shouted, not called, whispered, right behind my ear. I didn't run. I didn't scream. I just stood there, because something in me already knew. Whatever was still there, it wasn't her, but it hadn't let go. We couldn't save her, not because we didn't try. God knows we tried. We searched in teams, in shifts, in storms. We crossed ravines, pushed through brush, fought off exhaustion and doubt. But it wasn't enough. Because maybe, just maybe, Geraldine Largay wasn't meant to be found. Maybe she'd already crossed that line, the one between here and wherever the lost go when they know no one's coming. I think about her sitting in that tent, writing in her notebook, listening to voices pass by just beyond the trees. I think about her heart still beating, while ours were too distracted to feel it. I think about how something so bright, so alive, can go silent without anyone noticing. She didn't vanish into thin air. She was right there, and we missed her. Some people vanish, some are taken, but some are just missed, gone. This isn't a ghost story, or maybe it is, but not the kind with creaking doors and cold spots and shadows in the mirror. It's the kind where someone slips out of the frame, not all at once, but little by little, until no one sees them anymore. And by the time you notice, it's already too late. Geraldine Largay was a real person. She laughed, she loved, she believed in people, she believed in herself. And still, she disappeared right in front of us. We were trained. We had maps. We had dogs and helicopters and gear worth thousands of dollars. But we didn't see her. Not because she was hiding, but because we weren't really looking in the right way. We were looking for a figure, not for a feeling. We were looking for footprints, not for presence. You know, I think about that a lot now. All the people around us, the ones who go quiet, fade to the edges, stop being loud enough to notice. They're not always far away. Sometimes they're just unseen. So next time you're out there, on the road, or in the woods, or walking past someone who doesn't quite meet your eye, look again, not just with your eyes. Because sometimes they're still there.